Lords, I've taken a lot of notes from today's debate, and it's always difficult to reply to everybody, but I will in fact do my best outside the chamber. I see a lot of meetings in my future, including with the Noble Lord the Minister, I hope. I want to thank all Noble Lords who've contributed to the debate, which I thought was incredibly positive, and many of you mentioned things that I didn't think about mentioning. And the Noble Lord Kennedy, for example, he said in his speech that he had no doubt that Rosamund Kissy-Deborah was going to get the law changed, and I think he's absolutely right. And it seems that an awful lot of Noble Lords here in your Lordship's house will help her to do just that. I thank the Noble Lady Brinton for talking about the impact on children and, of course, her personal story. That's always... it makes everything very relevant when one hears a personal story. And the Noble Lady, Lady Boycott, talked about, again, her personal story of her daughter and twins, and she raised the danger of biomass, of actually labelling other fuels environmentally friendly when in fact they're not. And the Noble Lady, Lady Altman, talked about targets not being specific, and her personal story about her mother, and I do understand that that's clearly a concern. The Noble and Learned Lord Thomas of Grasford talked about hidden emissions, and also he gave us his legal wisdom on this. My own paternal grandfather was killed in a coal mine in the 1913 mining disaster in Senghenith, exactly, and so although I have a history of understanding about coal mining. The Noble Lady Baroness Bull talked about the mental health impacts, which I had omitted to mention, so thank you very much for that. That was quite unpleasant to hear. And the Noble Lord Desai, he wants me to make this bill even bigger, and I do thank him for that. I mean, I really thought I was being ambitious here, but he's inspired me perhaps to be more ambitious in the future. I also like his comment about the polluter pays, which is a principle that I have advocated for a very long time. The Noble Lord Holmes talked about the intangible and invisible pollutants, and that is part of the problem. The smog was so visible, so unpleasant, that people felt quite justified in bringing in the bill, whereas at the moment all these pollutants are difficult to see, and so it is harder to push the whole concept. The Noble Lord Moylan, he talked about my witty, gracious, I love compliments, that's fantastic. I don't think of myself as gracious, though. I'm glad he welcomes the principles. I'd be very happy to meet with him. In fact, I'd be happy to meet with any Noble Lord who wants to comment further. But I have accepted the points from the Delegated Powers Committee that were part of what he talked about. And also, he did say that it's only limited to England and Wales. Now, that was out of courtesy to the other countries. But obviously, I'd like to make it global. But that's beyond the powers of this particular Parliament. And, of course, my feeling is that Brexit allows us to do our own thing, and so it's absolutely perfect to do it for England and Wales. The Noble Lady Baroness Worthington did seem to suggest quite a few more amendments. If we can avoid those, I'd be grateful, but there are always other opportunities with the bill. But her idea about stop burning, that's so simple. That is indeed exactly what we have to do. And the Noble Lady Jones of Whitchurch, she talked about unfinished business and Labour's own Clean Air Act. Now, I'm a proud Green and have been, for decades, and it's very hard for me to share credit. But here I want to say that I have been incredibly touched by the Labour Party support for this bill, and I freely give it. I give up all my credit if they would like to take my bill and enact it, and the same to the Lib Dems. Any way that I can get these issues through, I'd be happy to support it. Now, the Noble Lord, the Minister, raised a lot of issues and said things like, oh, the government's on the case, the government's got these targets, it's doing its best. I'm going to tell you that this bill will improve things, and, you know, for people and planet. It will improve what the government is doing. And I give it to you freely. It is ready. It is oven ready in the sense that I understand, and not perhaps as the government understands. It is actually ready to go. And it will be, I think, something that the government could be proud of. And, you know, the Office for Environmental Protection, it's such a good idea, but it's so weak. And, you know, we can do better than that. And he mentioned all these monitoring sites. I don't know if you've ever visited some of these, but in the one at the Edgware Road actually has its intake pipe at 8 feet high. Now that means it can't actually take in all the pollution that happens at exhaust pipe level, so perhaps he could fix that. Finally, in closing, I would like to say this bill is not just down to me. Rosamond and I are the tip of the volcano. There are hundreds, thousands of people who are supporting this bill and who have supported writing it. I want to thank the team. And I also want to thank Sadiq Khan, who's been fantastic about supporting this when he really didn't have to. And so I would like to say I'd like to keep all the credit, but I can't. And thank you very much to the government for allowing this debate to go forward. I hope they accept the bill.
Hear, hear.